Ooh, is that ash? Oh, come on, D. Don't. Y'all pretend like you didn't see that. What is up, Flockers? That is my fellow Lockers and aspiring Lockers. In today's video, I have 5 myths about Braidlocs. So if you want to hear those 5 myths, then stick around. Why is it so hard to say myths? Myths. Myths. 5 myths. Here we go. The first myth that I have on my list is that the braid pattern will not disappear. This is not true, but there could be some truth to it depending on how you start your Braidlocs. I think for a lot of us, when we braid our hair, we want to have that sleek, braided look where we have every hair in place and it just looks nice and presentable and it looks like a nice braid. And so when you're starting your Braidlocs, there is that tendency to want to do that same type of tight, really well together kept braid. But honestly, with the end goal being locks, you do not want to braid them super tight. If you braid your hair loosely, and I'm not talking about where you can stick a finger through the different sections of the hair, but as long as you braid your hair somewhat loosely as you are doing your Braidlocs, your braid pattern will disappear. I am on month 11 of my lock journey. The ones around the front and the perimeter are smaller, and so I did braid those tighter, but so you will see braid pattern, but in the back, there's a lot less braid pattern and it's just starting to disappear. Some locks throughout my head, you really can't see a braid pattern at all in anymore already at 11 months, and some of the braid is still very prevalent, but like I said, it goes with time and they start to disappear. As you can see in this bunch, there are some that when you get super close, that you can tell that they are braids still, and then there are some that don't have much of a pattern at all. And the great thing is that when you're far away, you don't see the pattern at all. It is a myth that the braid pattern lasts forever. It may last, it does probably last longer than any of the other starter methods, whether you're talking about 2-strand twist, interlock, or instant lock, but it does disappear, again, as long as you do it not loose, but not too tight. The second myth on my list is that Braidlocs mature differently than other types of locks. This is completely false. Honestly, at the end of the day, no matter how you start your locks, as long as you didn't do something crazy and voodoo those locks, they should turn out to look like locks. There are gonna be very far and few people in between who are gonna be able to tell once you're 5, 7, 10, 12, 15 years into your lock journey, what your starter method even was, to be honest with you, because you're not gonna have the 2-strand twist pattern, you're not gonna have the Braidloc pattern, you're not gonna have the interlock pattern as your locks mature and they swell and then they compact and all that stuff. So Braidlocs mature just like any other locks. Now they may take a little bit longer depending on how tight you make them, but they will mature, they will get fuzzy, they will swell, they will compact just like any other type of lock. Myth number 3 is that the braided portion will stay smaller than the other portions of your lock. Now, this myth is true in the beginning stages, but again, just like the last one I said, as your locks mature and progress, that changes too. So yes, in the beginning, as your locks are forming and it's getting fuzzier from your interlocking or whatever method you choose to maintain your locks, you may have locks where the braided portion at the end as you go down the lock is a little bit skinnier. I'm having a hard time finding one just because I have swelling all throughout my locks. Some places like this one I have swelling and it's, you know, the pattern, like look, where's the braid pattern here? Can't even see it, but it was braided to the end. But then right here in the middle, it is thinner because that has not started fuzzing up yet. And then up here, you got where it's interlocked and it is not the same. So yeah, you are gonna have locks where you have lines of demarcation. Ooh, is that ash? Oh, come on, D, don't. Y'all pretend like you didn't see that. But you will have differentiations in your locks. And if you have someone that's up in your hair inspecting your locks closely, then they will see it. But nobody's seeing that when they're just standing at a normal, healthy, we were just in quarantine type bubble away from you type thing. So nobody's gonna see all of that You'll see it. It may bother you, it may irk you, but at the end of the day, like, just let it go and keep it pushing, because if you endure it and stick through it, you will be happy with your results later on, even if you're not happy with the way that your hair looks in the current moment. The fourth myth that I have on my list is that you cannot get lint out of your locks. Now, just like some of the other ones on this list, it's a yes and a no. Can you not get lint out of your locks ever completely? No, because sometimes the lint is going to be on the surface and you can easily just pick it off with your fingers. My locks are not super long yet, and so they are flirting with my shoulders. Look, they flirting. But as they get longer and we go back into colder months when you're wearing sweaters, turtlenecks, hoodies, whatever, you may start getting lint in your locks down here. If you catch it in the early stages before it gets embedded within your lock, then you may be able to just get it out with your fingers. There are people that go in with tweezers and that will tweeze the locks to get the lint out. I would not encourage that or recommend that, especially if you have Microlocs. If you have traditional locks, then maybe they're thick enough to where if you pull a couple of strands of hair out and break a couple of strands, you're not too worried about that. But when you have some really fine Microlocs, you're really not wanting to compromise 5 or 10 strands of hair, because every hair counts and matters. Not that my locks are brittle or anything, but once you start digging into your locks and pulling away at them, you start digging at the integrity of the lock. And over time, because chances are if you get lint in that spot, that's going to be the same spot that you get lint in every other time. So you're going to constantly be digging in the same spots in your locks, and you're going to weaken your locks over time. They may thin out and then eventually break off. So the way that I've handled lint in the past is that I would typically, if it just gets to a point where it's bothering me like crazy, at some point I just end up dyeing my hair jet black in my lock journeys anyways, just because I like for my hair to look, I know on camera it looks super dark and it looks like it may be black, but it's really not. If you go to my Instagram, if you're not following me on Instagram, go ahead and make sure to follow me on Instagram. The handle is davidjaysway, just like here. But my hair is lighter, just like a lot of black people. I'm sure you don't have jet black hair naturally. You probably have some form of really dark brown hair, ash brown, something like that. So I'm in that same category with a lot of y'all. All right, and the fifth myth that I have on my list is that with braid locks, you retain all of your length. That is not true. You are going to have shrinkage with braid locks as well. You are not going to retain all of your length. Now, it is true that I believe that with braid locks, I do believe that it is true that with braid locks, you are able to maintain more of your length and have less shrinkage than with, let's say, 2-strand twist or with the interlock method. Because by the nature of the braids just holding the hair in place, your length is going to be longer than, especially with 2-strand twist, because 2-strand twist will wrap up and shrink up like nobody's business. But with braid locks, you're not going to be out here Rapunzeling. Maybe you are for the first week, couple of weeks, but eventually as you're putting moisture in your hair, you're washing your hair, your locks are maturing and swelling and doing all the things that they're supposed to do. You are going to experience shrinkage. You are going to experience the creep up. That's just part of the lock journey. I don't have a ton of stretch in my locks, but there is some stretch. So you can see that, your hair does shrink and you're not going to be able to see the full length of your locks in the first year or maybe in the first 2 years, depending on how your hair grows and how it drops. So just be prepared for that. That's part of the journey. Even with braid locks, you're still going to experience shrinkage. It's just part of the process. So embrace it. Either way, you come out with luscious, amazing locks. Everyone in the lock family is shining, is looking amazing, regardless of how you start your locks. So that's that on that. Make sure while you are here to hit that like button so I know what type of content you're enjoying, and also hit that subscribe button so that you can join the flock. And while you're here, go ahead and check out some of these videos that have popped up on the screen. I'll see you there.